good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whenever you are watching this video. This is your official course online orientation. I'm glad that you've taken this class. It's an asynchronous class. That means we will have no live meetings, we'll have no live lectures, and it's going to rely a lot on you taking initiative, being motivated to do the work, and following instructions. Now, I'll be here to guide you all along the way, and this information that's being provided in this orientation is critical to your success. So feel free to watch it as many times as you need, and I am certain that you will have everything that you need. Now, a lot of times people want to rush through a class, get to the end, get the grades, and get the credits, but I want you to kind of take a different approach. I want you to consider developing what I call a sociological mindset. It's just a different way of viewing the world that we're probably not familiar with. I think the world can go really quickly and it can pass us by, and we're always in a hurry to get something, to see something, to experience something, but we have to sometimes let it, flow as it will. Now, I've been teaching at El Camino since 2004. Actually started teaching in higher ed in 2001. I'd worked in corporate America, mostly in human resources and recruiting. I've also worked in the financial services sector as well as the nonprofit. What I found all along the way is I think many students are leaving college and they don't have some of the skills that I think are really important, not only in the job market, but also in their personal lives. So I teach Soc 101, which is Introduction to Sociology, 102, which is Families and Intimate Relationships, Soc 104, which is Social Problems, and 113, which is Sociology of Sex and Gender. Now, all my classes operate the same way. Obviously, content is different. The topics we explore is going to be different. The textbooks are going to be different. But the format remains consistent because over this nearly 20 years, I have found some formulas and some ways of, invigorating the study of sociology that I think will make your class interesting and valuable. And also make it interesting for me to make sure that it's worth time and effort, to put forth in the class. So you may not probably think about this, but a lot of times people take a 100 level sociology class and 100 level anything, right? And say they're going to figure everything out. If you really want to know, the sociology 100 level classes really set the foundation. And actually, it offers kind of a broad view of the expansiveness of the discipline and give you, for example, there are specializations in sociology where you really dig in. That's when you get into those 200, 300, 400 level classes and beyond, such as visual sociology, sociology of sports, sociology of gender, sociology of religion, medical sociology. As you can see, anything that involves people, an understanding of people through research, the application of that understanding that comes in our everyday lives. It can impact policy, it can impact personal relationships, it can impact entire systems or even small groups. So it's just a wide range. And I think that for me, it's a never-ending discipline. Society's always changing. People are always changing. Now, I want you to walk away with improved communication skills in the various formats, including the written word, the spoken word, and through video. Some of this may be unfamiliar to you. Some of it may be familiar. Whatever the case may be, I want to help strengthen those skills so that you can continue on your educational journey, feeling confident and feeling like you have some skills under your belt, not just the knowledge. It's interesting how much we lose knowledge once we've taken an exam, and then a couple weeks later, we don't remember the stuff that we studied so intently. Now, my general working hours are Monday through Thursday, usually around 8 or 9 a.m. until about 12 noon or 1 p.m. So that's when I'm actively, reading information, reading messages, responding to messages, and grading and reviewing work that's been submitted. If you go, and I'll talk a little bit more about the sociologyonline.weebly.com website, which I tend to email that web address out to people before the semester begins. But there's a way to schedule office hours if you need to speak one-on-one with me after going through all the information that you have been provided. Now, remember that being an online student means that you have to be particularly organized. I tend to be very organized. I tend to find the simplest route most important. I don't want to get too technically bogged down with things. I want to be able to get to the point, be able to find things. And if anything, a lot of students have always said that time management is an issue for them. So the best way to go beyond those issues is to actually use the technological tools that are available. Scheduling, reminders. You can even go analog and use Post-it notes. But there's a way in which you should begin to schedule things, including when you're going to do your work, as opposed to waiting for the last minute, which is really not the best way. I think if you wait to the last minute, you're rushed, your work does not show the quality that it could, and you're missing out on an opportunity to develop your potential. Before we get into what I call the nuts and bolts of the class itself, I pose this question: why study human behavior? Now, there's a lot of answers to this question. First is to gain an understanding not only of others, but of ourselves. And so when I think of sociology, I immediately think of that question, nature or nurture. Now, when we talk about nature or nurture, nature being the biological aspects, the things that we're born with, our physiological makeup, primarily the brain and the way in which the brain, organizes information, allows us to communicate with other people, to think, to reflect, but also even more so, that is the concept of nurture. It's what environment do we find ourselves in, both the large and the small, at the societal level, at the regional level, at the state level. We can get down into politics. We can get down into family structures. We can get down into living arrangements. What is our day-to-day like? Who do we interact with? Which brings to mind the concept of Sonder, which is the profound feeling of realizing that everyone, including the strangers that pass you by on the street, have a life as complex as your own, which they are constantly living despite one's lack of awareness of it. So every person, we may think of this more so like this when we think about death and everybody, the great universal of death and everyone going to die. And everyone who dies are people who will grieve that loss. There are things that person has done in their life that have impacted other people, that have impacted systems. That is really thinking about each person individually, really helps to cultivate empathy. And I think the cultivation of empathy is one of the best things that you can do while studying human behavior. Specific to sociology is the sociological imagination, which is a concept coined by C. Wright Mills in 1959, refers to the ability to see the relationship between individual experiences and larger social forces, and involves understanding how personal issues are influenced by societal structures and historical context. This perspective encourages individuals to look beyond the personal circumstances to see the broader patterns at play in society, thereby linking personal troubles to public issues. Yes, we are social beings. We are raised amongst other people. We are constantly impacted by the behaviors of others, the decisions of others, what they communicate, how we perceive that communication throughout our entire lives. I also think of sociology, I think of research and the scientific method, the search for truth. Now, I believe that there are 4 truths. First, there's my truth, and you would say that yourself, your own truth, right? how I see the world, what I believe, what the belief systems are, where did they come from, how have they changed and evolved. Then there's your truth, which could be quite different from mine, your belief systems, what your experiences have been, and how you view the world. Then there's a collectively agreed upon truth, kind of the idea of we are all here right now, this is what's happening, there's things that impact all of us. I think that if there is a collectively agreed upon truth is the global pandemic, which we all went through, which we all survived through, and how that gave us this idea of we all can experience something together on the entire planet, albeit not necessarily a something that we want, but we don't always have the choice, do we? And then finally, the truth, which I spell with a capital T, is that truth that is, always has been, and always will be, and probably is so far beyond our understanding and comprehension that we'll never reach it. But I like to think that we want to reach it, and that everything we do in our evolution of our own truth and understanding other people's truth and all that together, as we reach farther and farther, more expansively. You can spend your whole life trying to figure out what is the capital T truth. There's also an aspect of prediction. Looking at the future, what is the future going to look like? What can we do to make it better? What can we do to improve the quality of life for people? There's also the solutions, the creation of solutions for pressing social issues that are around us every day. Finally, I think what is most intimate is the understanding of ourselves. How did we come to be? Who are we? Is it because of other people, society? Is it choices that we've made? Who are we? And how can we continue to understand ourselves moving forward? Over the years, I've really honed in on what I feel are my unique sociological style and approach, which may be different. If you have another professor may have a different approach or a different way of, let's say, doing sociology or understanding sociology. First is visual sociology, and that is the perception, the interpretation, and the creation of visual images that communicate truths about society. I'm very visually oriented, as you will find in the supplements that I create. Also, the micro level sociology I find particularly interesting, the power of communication and the problems inherent in miscommunication, whether it be verbal, nonverbal, through the media, through face-to-face conversations. How does the micro level experience relate to the larger social forces, and how can we change the larger macro level society through our own individual efforts? I also would consider myself a public sociologist, which is a subfield of the wider sociological discipline that emphasizes expanding the disciplinary boundaries of sociology to engage with non-academic audiences. So there is an academic language that happens. It is best understood as a style of sociology rather than a particular method, theory, or set of political values. Now, in academia, there is a whole range of discourse and rhetoric in the way in which the complexity of ideas are presented. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. There's a number of people who understand, because of their academic training and experience, higher level, more complex ideologies. But there's also everyday people who I think it's very important that they understand society, not from a news at 7 way or from a social media way, but more from a sociological way that is more accessible, that's more easy to understand, comprehend, and apply. There are a number of topics that I find particularly interesting, and because there's so many topics in sociology, I mean, so many topics. The ones that I find most interesting is race and ethnicity and culture, social inequality and social problems, gender, sex and sexuality, language. There's a subfield of sociology called sociolinguistics that looks at language, particularly regional dialects, accents, and semantics. And when we look at these things, we're really looking at these things in the way in which they impact people's behavior and thought process and how they interact with one another. For example, people There are people in this country who are from many different places and who speak multiple languages, and so there are residuals of different languages that carry over in which we call accents, and many people are judged by their accents. There are regional dialects. I grew up in the Midwest. I went to graduate school in the South. I lived in Northern California for some time, and then I moved to Southern California. There's definitely different ways that people speak, the words that they use, and how they say the words that, again, a lot of people will ascribe meaning to them. And that's where we have semantics. Semantics is a way in which we ascribe meaning to things that are probably meaningless as it relates to who a person is, their social value, their level of intelligence, and their value, and how we see them. And then, of course, families and intimate relationships, particularly things around dating and coupling and love and, everything from marriage to singlehood and different forms of marriage, polygamous marriage, group marriage, same-sex marriage, sologamy, these kind of things I find interesting. So hopefully within all these very vast amount of topics in sociology, you'll find something that you find very interesting. I hope so. So let me briefly talk about my instructional methods. And my instructional methods are pretty much all about, especially since I've been teaching online. I didn't always teach online. I think I've taught for at least 10 years strictly on campus, and then did some campus and hybrid classes. And now I'm pretty much strictly online. I might have a hybrid class here and there. But what can we do with this instructional method? Tapping into the available technology to take our ideas further. So an online class, to me, in the way that my methodology is, it's not just about reading information and typing things out, but what other things do we have going here in this technology? How can we use it as a teaching tool? Comprehension through reflection and observation. Part of the class of studying human behavior is being able to observe how other students are communicating the same things in a different way, and reflecting on the way in which we came to the class, and as we go through the class, we reflect on our change and evolution. I believe in empowering individuals and not enabling them. That's why I don't accept late work. That's why I do not play the game of, do what you want as you will, because there is a certain structure in society. There's a structure in the workplace. There's a way that things have to be done. And I do not want to set you up for failure by being overly lenient and really kind of making a mockery of what I consider a very sacred place, which is higher education. Now, what you do with higher education and why you're there, that's what's going to make the difference. But it's all about your decisions. So I'm here to empower you, but you have to make those decisions. I like to move individuals outside of their comfort zone. And a lot of people will be moved outside of their comfort zone. You will not grow unless you are moving outside of your comfort zone. I continually put myself in positions, in situations where I'm outside of my comfort zone because I want to continue to grow and evolve throughout the course of my life. And then intentionality and awareness over disengagement and proliferation. There's not things that I've created in this class because I just want to give you busy work. There's an intentionality with the way that these topics are presented, what I'm expecting to get back from them. That's why really following the instructions, not only as a way of fulfilling the assignment, because there's an intentionality behind the assignment. It's not just busy work. It's not fill in the blank, if you know what I'm saying. So I use two sites online. Of course, Canvas, which you're already familiar with. And if not, there are plenty of instructional tools and information at the online and distance education webpage at elcamino.edu. I'm sure most of you have already taken an online class. If you have not, that is your responsibility just to know how to navigate. But a lot of these things we learn along the way, right? Everything is always new the first time we do it. So keep that in mind. But let's talk about the Canvas learning management system and what we'll find there. We'll find the syllabus and the schedule. There's actually a syllabus page. And then I also put in a schedule that shows you what readings, when the assignments open, when they close, as well as the exams. That would be important for you to have and actually print out. I normally print these out myself, so it's quick to pull it out of the binder, and there it is. But you can always pull it up. A PDF. Let's see. There's a PDF preview of the syllabus, and you can also download it to your computer. Online courses, remember, are accessible 24 hours a day, and you'll be given multiple days to complete each assignment or exam. The work is manageable and relevant to the content being studied. I do not accept file attachments. Again, this is one thing that I've learned, because then somehow it just becomes overly complicated. So everything that's submitted is either typed into the system or submitted through a hyperlink. And late work, you can submit late work, but it will not receive points. That's why you really need to schedule when you're going to get the work done. So if something opens on a Wednesday, you know what, let's take that back, because I think I've changed that. So something tend to open things on a Friday, and then they close on the Wednesday. So if you're a person who likes to do work on the weekends, you have the weekend within that. If you're a person that likes to do work in the evenings during the week, you have that. But you have Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. There's no excuses for not getting it done. 24-hour access since the moment that it opens to when it closes. So don't wait for the last minute. What always happens is like, oh, something happened and I couldn't get the work in. I'm like, you had 7 days. So make it a practice to look at this schedule, put it into your device, or print out a calendar and just say, this, I'm going to work on this on this day. I'm going to work on this assignment Saturday at 9 a.m. Now, the thing about the assignments, you can go back in. You don't have to complete it. You can continue to go back in and, work and get to work at it until it's due. Edit it, whatever you need to do. When you first log into Canvas, you'll see a module that's the online course essentials module. You need to go through each of those pages before you can access the assignments. It's kind of the only requirement, that you have to go through all that. That way I know that you have read the information, or at least have gone through the page, and I'm making the determination that you understand what's on the page. And again, it's just a lot of it is there's some repetition going on here with the orientation video, with announcements that will be happening as well. But you got to read through each of those things, and don't zip through 100 miles an hour. Make sure you are clear on each of those steps. So that's pretty much how Canvas works. It's where you submit your assignments. You'll take your exams, where you can communicate with me through direct messages. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about the communication in the class as we do a walkthrough of sociologyonline.weebly.com. So we are now at sociologyonline.weebly.com, and I'm just going to kind of do a walkthrough just to make sure you are clear on where to find things. So underneath each of these menus is a submenu. First of all, if you click on, let's say, coursework, there's submenus here, but you can also click on coursework itself, and there's some information on those pages as well. I just want to give you a sense of navigation. Office hours, so you can click Sociology Online, it's a home page. So each of these title pages is a page in and of itself. So if you go to studying, if you go to coursework, and then the coursework has some submenus, so you can go directly to the assignments, the assignment instructions. Videos, there's specific videos organized under these pages. And also, if you click the word videos, you'll be going to a page that has things like tips, some videos of classic social experiments, so much information. You could spend a good hour on this page to see what's all on here. This is where I put my class schedule. This is where you can also go to get information about office hours. This is where you'll probably find this orientation. These are the required textbooks for your class. The cover of the textbook should look like this. It will be changed, of course, if the book changes. So always make sure and check that you have the latest edition based upon the way that the book looks. A little bit about me as well, about sociology. And then here we have a sociological mindset, which is also a series of sociological content that I have created. Now let's go to nuts and bolts. Now the nuts and bolts to me is really the operation of the class. And again, if you're a visual person like me, this will make sense. There are announcements, there are textbook readings, there's discussion posts of 3 types, and there are exams. There it is in a nutshell, 4 components of the class, which are going to be very important to be successful. Potential threats to course success. Poor time management, lack of time and effort. Rush, rush, rush. Failure to follow instructions. Not reading the textbook. Lack of exam preparation and lack of engagement in the course. So, how do we communicate with one another? Well, right now, because prior to the start of the class, we're communicating through emails. Well, once the class begins, everything will be happening in Canvas. So please don't email me during the course because it's quite quicker for me to find the message in Canvas and do it that way. You interact with other students, 5 other students every discussion post. And there's also greater comments, which kind of a dialogue between you and I based upon work that has been submitted. That is the communications for the class. How does this class, what are the values of this class, and how do they relate to this book by Don Miguel Ruiz called The 4 Agreements? I don't know if you're familiar with the 4 Agreements, but I really want you to check this out because it really is something that has changed my life, and it's really been something so appropriate for this class. We also have some videos of how you can be successful in the course from students who have been successful in the course. So again, everything that you need is right here. Now let's go to studying. Every class has study guides. So if you are in 102, for example, there's the official study guide for each exam and PowerPoint slides that you can download if you're a PowerPoint slide kind of person. Every class. Then there's some things I put in there as well, just some more sociological understanding things. Now let's go to, again, I talked a bit about videos. There is one video series that it was made for your phone that me and a colleague have made, and we have 3 minutes where we talk about content. We talk about topics that are important in sociology. And this is the only time I've ever made anything that was portrait orientation versus landscape. So that's that. Now, I think what is really important now is the coursework. The coursework is kind of the meat of the course if you really think about it. There are 3 different types of assignments that will challenge you to experience new modalities of thought and communication and engage with your classmates about topics that offer a variety of sociological phenomena directly related to the textbook content. So the idea here is that you're going to read the textbook because it's been assigned, and then you're going to go into the discussion posts and you're going to take the information that you learned, apply it to the idea or prompt, if you will, that's being presented. That's the idea. So it isn't just pulling from air. It's taking the ideas, the concepts that you've learned about and trying to immediately apply them to a sociological phenomenon. Now I want to talk about this screen a little bit while I have you engaged. So this shows you how the discussion posts will be consistent, whether they are a video, and I'm going to talk about these in detail, each one. But there's 2 parts. There's a response to the prompt. There's always going to be a prompt. It could be a question. It could be a statement. It could be an image. That's what you will use to respond to. Now, if it is a video and audio, and this is where the repetition is important, video or audio will always be around 60 seconds. No more than 70 seconds, no less than 45 seconds. The narrative posts, response to the prompt will always be 5 sentences. Put that in your mind. I repeat that about 3,000 times. But hopefully it will sink into your brain eventually. And then the second part, and again, you can do this first part and then come back later after people have submitted their work. Because what you're going to do is you're going to look at the work of other students, whether it's a video, an audio, or a narrative post. And you're going to reply to 3 students. Now, this is where it's important that you have each student name listed somehow, like, hey, Joe, or hello, Mary, whatever it is. I need to see 3 names. And then we have what I call the noteworthy quotes. So there's something, one sentence, no more than one sentence that you found, either they spoke or they wrote, and you're going to write that sentence down and you're going to put their name after it, after a dash. And there's examples again for each of these types. But this is kind of the overview of how we use these discussion posts to engage with one another. Now let's go to the first type, is narrative. The narrative discussion posts. And again, remember, this is a discussion post. And a discussion post, it's a discussion. It's not a formal presentation. It's a discussion. We're talking about something. We don't need to know everything there is to know about something, but we need to know something about something, especially if it's in the textbook. You want to edit your post. Now, here's the thing. This is one thing that I have found over and over again. I do read what you write. I do listen, all that. So if I'm reading what you've written and you've used your phone, most of the time people will use their phones and they're typing with their thumbs and they don't review it. They have lowercase i's, the punctuation is messed up. They use words, probably voice to text that shouldn't fit, and there's no review process. So you're kind of graded each sentence. You have 5 sentences, sentence by sentence. You have 5 sentences. And if there's one little error, I probably will overlook it if it's really well written, but this is where you could definitely lose points if you're not taking the time to review what you've written. You've got to review what you've written, okay? There are 3 parts to this. You're going to respond to the prompt. So here's an example right here. I actually wrote an example prompt of 5 sentences addressing the prompt, what is a good structure for writing excellent discussion posts? So not only am I showing you how you can write 5 strong sentences, but I'm actually telling you how to do it within that response, if that makes sense. Again, look over these pages. I could go over these a million times, but it's for you to sit down and really go through. This is a PDF file that you can look at, a good example of a narrative discussion post, replies and quotes. It's a video that will also help you through the process. Let's talk about the audio. Now, audio, this is the next step, it's like an audio podcast. It is not something that you have written down and are reading. I'm not reading anything right now. I have some notes. I thought it through, but I'm not reading word for word, because that would be like, I'm sure you've listened to a podcast or audio book, but what is it like recording yourself talking about topics of sociological interest? Just like the video blogs, your audio recording should be 60 seconds or as close as possible. If you're reading something in this recording yourself, I'll know that you're reading something versus just speaking freely on it. Take the time to think about the prompt, compose your thoughts, maybe write down a couple words or a couple bulleted items, but not reading a script. That's not what the nature of the assignment is. One thing that I believe is missing from this online education is the ability to think on your feet. We've got all this time to do it and find the answers and give me the answers. There's AI, there's all these things. We can all do that. We can all look something up, cut and paste. But what we all need to learn to do is approach this as if we're having a discussion. Here's what's been presented. I thought about it, and now I'm going to record my thoughts. That's really what a podcast is. A podcast has an outline, but it's not reading something. So you want to get as close to 60 seconds as possible. And there are some notes that I want you to read. You don't want to, after the first, the introductory video, you don't have to introduce yourself again. We're assuming that we now know who you are. We are operating in this closed, I call it like a closed, very exclusive, temporary social media platform called Canvas. That's what we are operating on. So you've already introduced yourself. You're not someone new. We have a small audience, maybe 40 people. And again, some of this is repetition. Here's an example of an audio discussion post. There are some additional thoughts I have about audio discussion posts. So again, I've gone through all of these assignments with students repeatedly. So every semester, I take the time to go back through and say, okay, what could I have communicated more strongly? Or how can I communicate this in a new way so people understand? So I've covered all the bases. So everything that you need is right here. Now, the final assignment type is the video. Now, this is the one that a lot of people do not have experience with, which is fine. That's why I'm giving you the experience. It's kind of like an audio podcast. You're still speaking about something. You're not reading from a script, but you're filming yourself. And there are some fundamental skills that you will learn. So I want you to read through all this. So you don't have to read it all and then wait. You can come back to it. So you come to the discussion post and you find out, oh, this week it's going to be a video. Then you go back to this instruction page and you read through it again. We want to film in landscape. So that means whether it's a phone or a webcam, it should be a landscape and not portrait. There are 5 important technical fundamentals when filming, which include lighting, audio, framing, and angle, as well as aesthetic. I've got some videos here to help you. I've got some information about the filming angle. I've got a mastering the 1-minute video ball. I have so many resources for you. And these below are examples of really good, solid video blogs. As far as lighting, one of the most important things is to make sure your face is lit and any windows behind you, such as you see here, have been closed by curtains or there's no light coming in. I'll show you the difference. As you can see here, my face is no longer the center of attention and all that light is coming in. Just be really mindful of where you're filming as it relates to light. Now let's talk a little bit about angle. A lot of people film at this angle and you can see the ceiling line right here. You can look as if I'm looming down at you, which is not the same as if we were having a conversation. I'm filming in the same spot, but at a different angle. You see, I'm maintaining just a little space above my head, shoulders, and kind of to mid-chest. This is the professional way of framing yourself. And if you don't have a tripod, you can always stack it on books. You can put it on a shelf and then lower your body. So maybe you don't have the right, you feel like you don't have the right place. Keep looking around and seeing it. If you do have, let's say, a table, then prop it up with books on the table and then get below the table, maybe sit on your knees. But what it does is it looks like we're having conversation. While we're here, I wanted to talk a little bit about eye contact. I'm not going to deduct points if you're not making eye contact because you already have a lot of criteria. And for many people, this is your first time. But you notice the difference. Right now, I'm using an iPhone and I'm looking at the little green dot, and that's where I know the camera is. Now, what happens is a lot of people maybe look at their own image, whether it's on a webcam, a notebook computer, or a phone. And right now, I'm looking away. So you as the audience probably feel more connected to what I have to say if I'm looking at the green dot. That's something, again, one of those strategies that I think can make you much more effective on camera, not only for this class, but moving forward. Once you get yourself in frame, it's always good to do kind of a test, see how you sound, should you speak up louder, and then watch the video and then look in the background. Like I do this Every time I look at the background, should I be moved a little bit more here, more there, and just kind of move things around so you feel completely comfortable and you really like the aesthetic of where you're filming. This is just a multi-step process before you even get to talk to, but think about it, you're only talking for 60 seconds. And so a lot of the time, which I found for such a short video, is getting everything set up, making sure you can be seen, making sure you can be heard, you got your angle right, you've got your framing correct, and you've checked your background to make sure there's nothing distracting like unfolded clothes or anything that people put that could probably be tidied up a bit. One of the main problems filming in this orientation is it really is for social media. It is more of a casual way of filming. But right now you'll see there are two black boxes on each side of me when someone is viewing it on a computer screen, which is what I do, versus a phone. And also about 50% of this screen is nothing happening, and I'm right here. Now, if I was to move myself into the full frame, this, to me, that's still too much body. I think it's still too casual. And you'll find that there is kind of a difference between this kind of filming and this kind of filming. The thing I see a lot of people doing, which I'm doing right now just to illustrate a point, is they're holding the phone and the phone is kind of moving around, and that can be very distracting. Now, it'd be different if you had a gimbal and if you were walking around or moving around like this, but most people, they're just going to be sitting stationary and they're going to be moving. This is what I call the floating head. Again, we have this severe angle, as you can tell, but even if you didn't have the angle, you're just having kind of a head there. Remember to keep your head and your shoulders, go from mid-chest and just leave a little. And again, these are techniques that I know are going to make you, your self-presentation be more professional, and people are going to listen more when you've taken the time to really put yourself in frame. Now, again, I'm holding the camera, and as you can see, even me, who has lots of skill and lots of experience in filming, I cannot hold this thing still. And I think and then you've got this arm extended like that. Again, this is the difference between something that's more casual and something that's more academic and professional, which is what we're trying to achieve with these videos. And finally, we have grading rubrics. The grading rubric is what I use to evaluate your work, but I do it in a transparent way, so you know exactly what I'm looking for. You know how to get points, trying to get to 15. You know where you're going to lose points if you're not following directions. So if you ever happen to get a grade on a discussion post and you're not sure why you got less than a 15, pull this out. Pull this grading rubric out and evaluate your own work before you submit. I'm going to be completely honest with you that there really is no excuse for not doing really excellent work when there's so many tools available at your disposal. I mean, you have things like Grammarly, you have things, there's AI tools, there's so many tools available to you to review what you wrote, and it's only 5 sentences. Your failure to do that, to me, is just a lack of effort. It's a lack of effort. You've got to put time and effort into the work. This is how you earn 3 college credits. They're not just handing college credits out. It's kind of like a job. Instead of getting paid money, you're getting paid college credits. So you've got to submit college level work. But definitely, please look over these rubrics each and every time. There's a rubric in PDF format. I encourage you to maybe download it and print it out and just review that. So you're going to be reviewing the instructions. You're going to be reviewing the grading rubric for every assignment, and then you're going to obviously look at the prompt after you've read the textbook. So that is everything that I wanted to cover today, everything that I think is important for you to be successful. And again, I will be sending out announcements all along the way to encourage you to talk about the topics that we're studying, to offer guidance and suggestions, collective feedback, as well as individual grader comments that you may or may not get. Sometimes you get comments, sometimes you don't. It all depends on what needs to be addressed. And I hope that you enjoy. I think once you kind of get through the information that I presented here, and again, this is the longest video you will ever see from me. Ideally, I like to do my videos between 3 to 7 minutes. They're usually around 5. And that's my main source of communication. Sometimes I do audio. Sometimes I do some written announcements as well. I like to shake things up just like I like to shake things up in terms of your assignments. So welcome to sociology. I hope that you leave with a sociological mindset and that you can see the value in studying and understanding human behavior. See you online.